Hi there, welcome to the Looney Bin. My name is Looney, and you're probably wondering based off, the title of the video or the thumbnail, and wondering what the hell am I talking about, right? What do you mean Zoro defeating Mihawk won't be the recognition that Zoro gets to be considered the world's greatest swordsman? Now, it's not that I do not believe that Zoro will, not beat Mihawk. I think he will. Depending on how the story progresses, right? He's going to find Mihawk at some point, and I think he will beat Mihawk, and then more than likely probably get his great sword or, something from him, right? To move on to the thing that actually I believe will make Zoro the world's greatest swordsman. And the reason why I think this is because I've noticed a pattern that Oda has been doing throughout the series with Zoro. And this pattern, I think, will essentially be the thing that will cement Zoro as the world's greatest swordsman. It's not going to be a fight. It's not going to be him beating somebody. It's going to be a show of feat that will really, really imprint onto the memories of the people who see it and will speak of him as legends, which is what he wants. He wants his name to be reached to the heavens. I do not think defeating Mihawk is going to be the way to go. I don't think that's what's going to happen, right? I don't think that's how, Zoro's going to get that title. Yes, he defeats the world's greatest swordsman, the current world's greatest swordsman. But if there's no audience, right? If there's no grander audience, and I'm not talking about like other pirates, who will be there to witness it. I'm talking about like actual individuals, just normal town folk, they need to see something, a grand feat, to really recognize Zoro as the world's greatest swordsman. And there's only one thing I personally believe that will do it. And before I go into what that feat is, I just want to explain to you this pattern that I've been seeing with Oda that he has done with Zoro. And the pattern begins essentially in Alabasta. So what was the main focus of the Mr. One fight with Zoro and Mr. One? It was the idea that Zoro was not able to cut steel and that he needed to figure out how to cut steel in order to, defeat Mr. One. And he eventually learned it. He eventually learned the technique, to calm his mind, right? To finally defeat Mr. One and be able to cut steel, which he has been doing ever since, right? That is important because it's essentially making Zoro do something and cut something that, many swordsmen have really a difficult time with. And that is important as we move along in this pattern. The next moment of like something that is impenetrable or something that's tough to cut, is the giant beanstalk that was in Skypiea. Now, while Zoro is and was able to cut parts of the giant beanstalk, where it just needed an impact dial from Wiper to officially cause it to start falling down, it was still something tough that he had to cut. But that is another moment where Oda is trying to show Zoro cutting something that would be impossible or be incredibly difficult. So after that, we go into, Enies Lobby. While this feat isn't necessarily as impressive as the giant beanstalk or as cutting, steel, the purpose of CP9 is that he's able to cut Kaku, who's able to use this ability known as Tekai, I believe that's what it's called, where he's able to solidify his defense, right? He's able to cut someone who's able to do that. That is another piece of the pattern. He's able to cut something that others have a hard time doing, right? Even Luffy had a hard time until he went into Gear Second and was able to, have the strength to essentially go through the defense of Bueno and be able to defeat him. But as you're clearly seeing a pattern going on here, right? After Enies Lobby, right? You could look into the fact that he couldn't able to cut Kuma. Why? Because as a pacifista, his body was made out of an alloy that was really hard to cut, and Zoro was not able to do so. After the time skip, he was then able to do so. Even during his training in pre-time skip, before going to time skip, he had a hard time cutting the baboons, or the animals that, live with Mihawk. He had a hard time. It was part of his training, and he was able to do so, and got stronger. And as we head into the new world, we now go into Dressrosa, where you have Pika made out of stone, using the stone fruit. And he is this huge individual, right? The moment Zoro cuts him is an incredible feat. And the purpose of this, I think, is Oda's foreshadowing something that will be instrumental to allowing people to see that Zoro is the world's greatest swordsman. And the reaction of the people of Dressrosa in seeing Zoro being able to cut Pika, right, is just shock. It's just, oh my god, what? It's one of the most like spine-chilling moments in One Piece for me, right? It was so cool. It gave me goosebumps seeing all of that, right? The fact that he was a giant figure made out of stone was essential. And the purpose of that whole thing, like I said, was the reactions of the individuals. That is the important key to what happened in Dressrosa. So after Dressrosa, we move to Wano, right? Where Zoro is able to use Enma and able to cut a piece of the island off, which is an incredible feat on its own, right? But then we move on to King. And King, as a Lunarian, has this, impenetrable defense, right? If he has a flame on his back, nothing can hurt him, nothing can cut him, impenetrable. While Zoro needed to cut King while the flame was on his back to give this as some sort of hardcore piece of like evidence or to connect everything, it's still interesting that Oda has developed and created this type of race that maybe later on, like we see in Egghead, that Zoro will be able to cut at some point in time if we continue this pattern. So while Zoro was not able to cut a Lunarian with the flame on, it's still a possibility that Oda may do it later on. So there's this pattern here. Oda showcasing Zoro doing this incredible feat of cutting something or doing something that really gives off shock value. And that is what people will remember, right? That is what people will remember. And the reason why people will remember that and why I think, this is instrumental is because look at the story of Ryuma, Zoro's ancestor. Ryuma was able to cut and kill a dragon. The people of Wano celebrate that as lore, call Ryuma a legend because of it. What is one of Zoro's ultimate goals is to have his name be spoken even into the heavens, right? I do not think him beating Mihawk will do that. I don't think so. I don't care how big or how tremendous of a fight it is. If it's a fight and there's no one to see it aside from like the Straw Hats or the Cross Guild or whoever's nearby it, it's not going to get his name into legends. Sure, Morgan could print out, papers that says, that Zoro beat Mihawk. But I don't think that's what's going to do it. You need a moment. You need a defining moment with Zoro, in front of a large-scale audience that will really make people say, oh my god, he is the world's greatest swordsman. Oh my god, this feat that he just did, it was an unimaginable feat. Doing something that no one thought was possible. To the point where, like, even normal townsfolk, normal people will see this, right through, like, video screens, through Denden Mushi, and see this and be like, oh my god, Zoro is the world's greatest swordsman. He did something that no one was able to do. Not even Mihawk was able to do this, right? What would that be? What would that be? My suggestion and what I think and what I theorize that moment will be is Zoro being able to cut through the red line. I'm not saying Zoro's going to destroy the red line because I think there's going to be something else that destroys it. But there will be a moment during the final war where Zoro is needed to cut through the red line, maybe to bring Pluton over to another sea or something like that, right? And Zoro being able to cut something as impenetrable, something that Laboon has not been able to do any damage to, right? That would solidify Zoro as the world's greatest swordsman through the eyes of the individuals of the One Piece world. People are going to see this. People are going to see it through Denden Mushi's, or people will be involved, because this final war is going to be on a scale where, every single person on the planet is going to be affected, right? There's going to be people who will see this. And that is the audience you want. You want the world, the planet, the people of the planet to see Zoro's incredible feat. By having Zoro cut the red line straight through, right? Straight, a part of the red line straight through. You're going to get the reactions that you got with the people of Dressrosa once Zoro cut Pika. You're going to get an impenetrable force like the red line be just sliced by Zoro. That will solidify Zoro as the world's greatest swordsman. because you get not only an incredible feat, right? You get the audience reaction, right? And you get people to remember this feat. Because if you do, then people will speak of Zoro as legend. The same way Ryuma was spoken as legend by the people of Wano, because he was able to cut a dragon. That will solidify Zoro as the world's strongest swordsman, and his name will be spoken even into the heavens. That is what I think Oda is planning for Zoro, to be and officially be called the world's greatest swordsman, and possibly the world's greatest swordsman in history. And also think about this. Ryuma was able to slay a dragon, right? If the red line is depicted as Jomong, I don't know how to pronounce the name of the great Norse snake, but if he's able to cut the red line, it will be similar to that. Ryuma cut a, serpent. Zoro was able to cut the remnants of a serpent, right? I think it all fits in that same way, and I think that's really going to be very important. Even some of the dialogue Zoro has said throughout every single one of these patterns has been a mention to something on the grounds of, I have to cut this. I can't get strong unless I could cut this. Or, I have to get so strong that I'm able to cut iron, be able to cut steel. He even says that, there's nothing in the world I can't cut. Even during the Pika fight, he talks about cutting a mountain. It's all, I think, leading up to that moment of being able to cut the red line. So that's what I think will happen. I don't think, Zoro beating Mihawk is going to be the defining moment where, he's finally, the world's strongest swordsman, right? He may think that, but I think what will solidify it for the rest of the planet, right, and everyone else will be that great feat of cutting the red line. And if you have that audience, you're gonna get people talking about what happened. Some people will not believe you, but his name will be spoken in legends because of that moment. Same way people will speak legends of Sun God Nika, right? That's, I think, the whole point of what this pattern is happening, or what this pattern is doing, what Oda is trying to do, with Zoro slowly progressing through many different, impenetrable things, and be able to have Zoro cut them. It all will lead to the red line being cut by Zoro, and the reaction of the individuals of the entire planet will see it and recognize Zoro as the world's greatest swordsman, and have his name be spoken through legends. So let me know what you think. Hopefully you like this video, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you guys next time. All right, bye bye.